very small and it's extremely wealthy. Like,
so what is he? That's what his smicha
there's a shliach over there.
All right, good choice.
I know. I think I want to follow him. They have their own police station, but I think it's only to increase the property values.
And the taxes.
Yeah.
I can still see you. Oh. Now I can see. I have 360-degree sight. All right. So, hello everybody. I hope you had a good Pesach. We haven't gotten together yet since Pesach.
Didn't I see you here yesterday?
Sorry?
I didn't see you here yesterday?
I was here yesterday, but yesterday I didn't have a general class. I had a smaller group. Oh. You can hear it. So it's nice being with you all, and we'll go back to our routine. As you know, we speak generally on something based on the Pasha of the week, and then we try to focus in on some points and get an insight, something that is meaningful to us directly, whether practically or conceptually. So the Pasha of the week, you all know, is Pasha's Behar. And this is where Torah gives us the mitzvah of Shemitah. Shemitah. Shemitah means that you have to let your land barren the 7th year. And you have to let it barren in a manner not only that you do not till and plant the land, but you leave it open for all intruders. Anybody who wants to come is welcome to come to your land and get from it the produce that are there, the fruits or whatever that grows there naturally, and you can't interfere with them. Not only that, even not only any other person, but even wild beasts of the field, of the wild, are welcome into your field. Mind-boggling. And the principle is that you have to remember that the land belongs to its creator. And on the 7th year, it reverts back to that basic state. You were permitted to use the land as a private owner for 6 years, but you should remember that this is just a permit that you got. The land always belonged to the Creator, and while you claimed ownership, it was by the good graces and consent of the Creator. He's the one who set up this whole system, and he let you use the land. He brought you into the land and gave it to you, and you have to remember that it belongs to him. And once in 7 years, it reverts back to its basic state. which is actually reminiscent and corresponding, not reminiscent, it corresponds, as a matter of fact, to the 7 days of the week, where we have 6 days during which we work in our worldly endeavors, involvement, duties, pursuits, okay? And then, on the 7th day, it's called Shabbos LaHashem Elokecha, it's God's day. And you go back into a different state of being completely. It seems like you're not in the real world. You're not, better put correctly, is you're not really in the world. You are in the world, but not really in the world. Because you recognize then that the world belongs to Hashem. And therefore your occupation is completely focused on your relationship with the neighbors. Then beyond that, the Torah says there's an additional state, even higher than that, and that is called Yovel. Because just like in the week, there are 7 days in the week, 6 and the 7th, so too in the years there is 6 and the 7th. And then we are instructed to count 7 times 7, 7 Shemitahs. Just like we're counting 7 weeks of Tzvira, 7 times 7. And then we reach the 50th year. And the 50th year is called Yovel. So in that Shemitah, in that moment, we have 2 years in which the field is left barren. The Shemitah, the 7th year, and the 50th year. 2 years consecutively that we do not till the land. And Yovel has, as I said, additional requirements. You want to call it restrictions. As we shall see, these restrictions are extremely expressive. They give us a very profound and meaningful message. And the restriction is that when the Yovel comes, all property that changed hands during this period, during the Yovel period, during these 50 years, changed hands because of sale, legitimate sales, reverts back to its original owner, automatically. It goes back to the original owner the way Eden, when the Eden came into the land, and the Yeshua conquered the land and divided the land amongst the Shvatim. And then each Shevet divided its land amongst its families. If any sales take place, at the 50th year it reverts back to the original state. And the Torah clearly states, right there, it says, the land cannot be sold permanently. You do not have the power to sell the land permanently, because you are but visitors with me. With all the claim of ownership and power that you have, you are really visitors with me. And the land, ki li ha'aretz, the land belongs to me, Hashem says.
So where do the people go when they're thrown out of their houses?
the it's incumbent on us to reflect on this and to understand what is the message here. What does it mean? The land belongs to me. Of course the land belongs to Hashem. Hashem created it, but He gave it to the human beings. What does Hashem need land if not to give it to people? If we look closely in the expression in the Torah describing this phenomenon, this mitzvah, Torah says, Ki li ha'oretz, the land belongs to me, ki geirim v'seishovim atem imodi, because you are but visitors, seishovim, or citizens, but essentially you live with me. There are mitzvahs in the Torah that pertain to a particular action and particular part of the person. Let's say the mitzvah of tefillin, you put it on your arm, you put it on your head. So even though the head and the arm, of course, it's facing the heart. These are the primary organs in a person that carry his life. Nevertheless, these are individual organs of prime importance. And this basically pertains to the overwhelming majority of mitzvahs. A mitzvah involves a specific organ, a specific action. So that one can do the mitzvah and essentially, conceptually, he remains himself, but he is performing a certain action. He's outside, essentially he's in his own abode, in his own ownership, but he's performing a certain action. Then there are mitzvahs, several mitzvahs, that effectively do not have any particular action involved. And these are mitzvahs since they don't have a particular action, they clearly don't relate to any particular organ, particular part of the person. They are defining the entire presence of the person himself. They're defining a person. Who are you? Such a mitzvah is Shabbos, for instance. Shabbos, when Shabbos comes, you're automatically into Shabbos. Whether you lit candles or you didn't light candles. Whether you said Vaychulu, you didn't say Vaychulu, you said Baruch, you didn't say Baruch. You're automatically in Shabbos. The entire existence, the Jewish existence, it's transformed there. And it comes into a different period, a godly period, and that's where you are. It's not dependent at all on your actions. That's why Shabbos, the Torah says that Shabbos is ois hi beini uveinech. Shabbos is a sign between us and Hashem that Hashem is our God. What does it mean? Ani Hashem Elokeichem. Adas ki Ani Hashem Elokeichem, to know that I'm your God. Why not? Every mitzvah is, you do a mitzvah. Why are you doing a mitzvah? Because Hashem commanded you to do the mitzvah. So you're obeying a command. There's a difference between obeying a command and being one with the commander. Shabbos uplifts the Yidden, the Jew, to a completely different state. As we said, he's no longer really in the world. Because if you're in the world, it really does not make any sense. What do you mean? I'm in the world. I have to do things. And as we discussed one time before, the prohibitions of Shabbos, things that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, malachos on Shabbos, are not such that can be readily understood in a worldly context. Oh yeah, this is a malacha, this is something exhausting. You shouldn't be doing this. It's disturbing you rest. You have to have a day of rest. It's nothing like this at all. You carry a handkerchief on Shabbos. That doesn't exhaust you. And yet that's a malach. And you carry heavy furnishings around in the house, although it's not the best thing to do on Shabbos, but you're not transgressing on Shabbos. Clearly, it means something different. It's not just a day of rest. It's a day that the world rests, because the world is elevated from a worldly state to a godly state. And that is bestowed, that is a gift from Hashem to the Yidden, that they have that privilege to participate in that elevation, in that superior state.
So does it mean to say that the way that Shabbos appears in a Jewish house, that's the way that the world really is on Shabbos, and the fact that all around it seems like the world hasn't stopped, it's really not. Is not the truth?
Absolutely. This question, is a broad question, and I'll touch on it briefly. It says, Breishis bara Elokim hashamayim v'ha'aretz. And we discussed this pasuk many times. And everybody knows the translation of these words. And I'll speak about it a little bit on enrichment. What the pasuk says is that the beginning, what is the beginning of all existence? Without which there is no existence. Everything fades into oblivion if you don't have that beginning. This is what substantiates all existence. And that is that Bara Elokim et hashamayim v'ha'aretz, that Hashem created Shamayim v'ha'aretz. If you lose sight of the union that Hashem created Shamayim v'ha'aretz, then Shamayim v'ha'aretz themselves cease to exist in the real sense. They're meaningless presences that stand for nothing, and it's almost a facade. And the Rashi says that this that Hashem created Shamayim v'ha'aretz, and this is the beginning of all existence. Beis Reishis, there are two things that initiated the creation. And that is the real foundation of existence. And that is Beis means two Reishis, two things that are the initiator of creation, and that is the Torah and Yisrael. Torah and Yisrael. So, to answer your question, anything that's happening outside of Yisrael, of the realm of Yisrael, is of no consequence. because that world is a fictitious world. It's a world that comes from nowhere and goes nowhere. It doesn't have a true purpose. Its purpose is only in support of this base ratios. That is the real world.
It's that aspect of it, that it supports base ratios,
Yes.
that's real about it,
Well,
right?
that gives it reality.
Okay.
But but on its own doesn't have a value.
Okay.
It's not a real value. As I said, this really requires a broader discussion, which again we touched here many times, the Rambam and so forth, that we have to understand. The existence of world, by definition, requires a reason, a substantiation, because world is not a real presence. And the substantiation of this existence is the fact that Hashem wants it. God is a real existence, and if Hashem wants it, then the world acquires a real presence. And what does Hashem want in the world? Base ratios. These are the two things for which Hashem created the world. If you take away that, then you don't have anything. Again, this is, as I mentioned, in this, it has a lot of depth, but we discuss it another time, and I don't want to deviate completely into this. So the real world is, in fact, on Shabbos, is the Shabbos world. And thus, when Shabbos comes, as I said, it isn't that a Yid has to decide he is going to keep Shabbos. He is going to attest, he's going to do something. The Shabbos is there. And a Yid is automatically uplifted and brought into the Shabbos. This is where we have the testimony that a Yid and Hashem is one thing. So that he doesn't have to do anything to participate in the Shabbos. Because he is one thing with him, automatically, by virtue of the Creator or the will of the Creator himself. The similar union is in Shemitah and in Yovel. Again, the Torah Hashem has given us in the Torah many mitzvahs. Every mitzvah has its particular effect on the Yid. A particular message pertains to a particular aspect of the person. You may not eat this, you may eat this. Kosher, kosher food. As I said before, tefillin, tzitzis, shatnas, everything has a particular relationship, and it has a particular message to the Yid. And from that perspective, it may appear that a Yid, that he is actually in his own, actually in his own world, so to speak, but he is doing what his boss is telling him to do. So there is he, and there's the world, and the boss who tells him what to do. Then comes the mitzvah of Shemitah, and then, moreover, particularly the mitzvah of Yovel. that redefines his entire existence. And it teaches him, it imbues him with this recognition that his entire presence in the world is very true. Why? Because it represents God's presence. He is not a separate entity. Ayid represents Hashem's presence in the world. And you don't see this more than in the union of Yovel and Shemitah. Yovel says, you live on land, and here's a gentleman who's concerned, what's going to be with this house, and he's not going to have a place to live. This is your dwelling, this is where you are. Hashem says, you live in the house, you live on the land. No. You're living with me. This is where you are. And I am giving you a physical place to live. That's on the physical level. But in essence, your presence and your existence is in your relationship with me. This is the paramount difference between a Yid and everything else in the world. Everything else in the world is part of the world, has a worldly support. A Yid is, even while he's in the world, his base is not the world at all. His base is Hashem, is the creator of the world. This is why we say Kriya Shema every day. And Kriya Shema says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And what does Hashem Echad mean? Anybody knows what the kavanah of Hashem Echad? That there is nothing but Hashem. How can you say there's nothing but Hashem? I'm right here. I'm in the world. What kind of statement is this?
There's no contradiction.
Contradiction?
No, there is no contradiction.
No contradiction. Why?
Because everything is one.
Because even though we are in the world, we are not really in the world. Because the world, we are in the world only because we recognize that Hashem is the one who makes the world. Hashem Echad means that Hashem encompasses the entire space. So our direct relationship and our true sense of existence and presence is not due to our physical and material possession, but our belonging and our being with Hashem. So, in terms of avodas Hashem, in terms of intellectually and emotionally, to be able to absorb and to live up and to rise up to this madriga, clearly this is a very difficult thing, and it's a high madriga, and it's very challenging. But the Torah gave us mitzvahs that inevitably place us in that position. So it becomes a challenge. You have to let go of your land, you have to return the land, and so forth. But its ultimate purpose is that not only that we should do the mitzvah and so to speak, not be punished for not doing it, but we should relate to it. We should absorb it. We should actually take it in a optimistic way. The whole Sefer HaTanya that speaks about all the various challenges and difficulties that a person has in life, and particularly in doing Avodas Hashem, and doing Avodas Hashem in the proper way. In essence, the central theme of the Sefer HaTanya is that one should understand that in essence, you are one with Hashem. You don't become one with Hashem by you doing the mitzvah. You are one with Hashem. And when we recognize this truth, then this alleviates much of the burden, much of the difficulty of relating and delving into Torah mitzvahs. Here we're sitting here in yeshiva, and we're sitting and learning Gemara. Whatever Gemara you're learning, what are you learning these days? Chesed Habatim? Wow. All right. So you're learning about Chesed Habatim. Who is involved in that particular problem, practically speaking? Yeah. No. And yet we go in and we debate this thing and we try to understand all the svaras and all the reasonings that involved. How real is it? So when we look at it from a worldly perspective, we are not really related to it. But when we understand, like the Alter Rebbe says, that every word that we are learning, this is not explaining the world to us. It's explaining Hashem's will to us. Even though it appears that it kind of, there are explanations that fit it into the world, but that's not what justifies it. The real reason why this is correct is not because it fits with the world, but because this is Hashem's will. And when we recognize that Hashem's will, this is the real essence of existence, of particularly our Jewish existence, then that changes our whole perspective. And it makes it possible for us to delve into every aspect of Torah, regardless of what it discusses. They say also what Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that the meaning of learning Torah is that this is Hashem's will, even if the situation in the particular case is so odd and so unusual that it may never happen. So when we are approaching learning Torah, I want that the Torah teaches you about the world. It teaches me about the world things that I'm not interested in, that will never come my way. But if it teaches me about Hashem's will, then it's a completely different thing. And then it becomes very revealing of how Hashem looks at the world, how Hashem wants the world to be. L'chaim? Yeah. You may remember that when we talked about Yetzias Mitzrayim, and Yetzias Mitzrayim, we pointed out that why is Yetzias Mitzrayim so central to Yiddishkeit? So normally we think of it as Hashem has done to us such a great deed, such a great favor. He took us out of Mitzrayim. He freed us from bondage. And therefore, we owe him our allegiance. But then, we asked them the question, what? You remember?
It was already thousands of years ago.
No. Yeah, of course
We
it's
were
not.
slaves and now we slave to Hashem.
He put us in there.
He put us in there. If he hadn't put us in there, we would be a nation like all other nations. So the whole thing is like a trick. You put us in there in order to take us out and then claim, oh, look what I did for you. So we explained that that is not the emphasis. That is not the point at all. The point is that Hashem put us into the slavery. And the point of putting us into slavery is to remove from us any sense of a natural existence. And Mitzrayim is a nation that grew out naturally. There was a man called Mitzrayim, and he settled over there in that peninsula. And he had kids, and his kids had kids, and it became a nation. It's like a forest growing up. Trees grow naturally. One tree falls down, and then it grows and it grows and it becomes a dense forest. It can increase indefinitely. It's all a natural process. There is no national identity. The nation wasn't created as a nation. There was one man, and this man developed into a multitude of people, and that became called a nation. There's only one nation in the world that was created as a nation, not as an individual person. And that's the Jewish people. The Jewish people, yes, they have an ancestry, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yankov. But Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yankov, this is only an ancestry. But then they came down to Mitzrayim, and they effectively lost their individual identity. They got mixed and completely drowned in the Egyptian culture. And why was that? What was the purpose of that? The purpose of that is that it should be clear that we were not a nation in the natural process. We didn't grow like the trees in the forest. We were taken out of Mitzrayim and declared by Hashem himself, you are my nation. Created from nothingness, from non-existence. Physically they existed, but they didn't exist as a nation. And this is what the Pasuk says. I am your God who took you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. What is the point of that? The point, you should know that what is your identity? Who defined you as a nation? It is me. Without my defined definition, you're not a nation. This is an important principle with Yidden. That what is a Yid? See, a Yid, his ancestry. A Yid is part of the nation that Hashem has created directly as a nation. This is what a Yid is. We always ask ourselves, why is the world, so to speak, the Goyish world, so hateful of the Jew? After all, the Jew, very good person, very smart, very creative. Historically, the Jew has been much more contributing to the welfare of the world than any other nation. He gave good things to the world more than any other nation, at every level, besides religion, which is the primary gift, but in every level, scientists and everything. And the Jew is hated. Take in this country. In this country, the Jews were the ones who stuck out in fighting for equal rights for the blacks, for racial, for the racial segregation. Fighting. And who are the blacks hating more than anybody else? The Jew. What's going on? So the Torah says that the Torah says the enemy of the Jew is the enemy of Hashem. What does that mean? It means that hating a Yid, and the reason for the fact that they hate a Yid, is not that they hate the Yid per se. You say anti-Semites, right? Semites. They hate the Semites. Do you realize the Arabs also Semites? What? The Russians? The Russians are Semites? Okay. I'll take your word for it. And everybody knows anti-Semite means anti-Jewish. Why? So it's not, we're not talking about the ancestry, we're not talking about the chain, the racial chain. We're talking about something else. And what is it? That a Yid with his very presence represents Hashem's presence in the world. We have to understand this principle. We are only visitors here, Hashem said. We are visitors in this world. But essentially, we live with Hashem. Our life is centered and focused on Avodas Hashem, not on the world. That is our definition. And this is what the Torah says in the mitzvah of Shemitah and Yovel. That just like Shabbos gives a sign, is a present sign that we are Hashem's people and Hashem is with, and that we live with Hashem, not with the world, to the point where we give up 1/7 of our worldly life to inactivity. It's quite a big gift, a big sacrifice. But it's not a sacrifice because that defines who we are. The same thing is in the Shemitah and in the Yovel, that this is what defines our very being. Thus, coming back to our situation here, like I mentioned before about learning and davening, one of the principles that we have to reflect on that are very helpful and beyond helpful, that are the basis for the learning and for the training that we're getting here. And one of the principles is that we are trying to recognize the basis of our existence, the basis of what we stand for. When we recognize this basis, and we actually break out, like Hashem said, He takes us out from the physical world. We break out from the confines of Mitzrayim, which is the physical world. And we recognize that what is life? What is a Jewish life? The Jewish life, by definition, is their relationship with Hashem. And therefore, that changes his entire pursuit. When we wake up in the morning, I always mention this, wake up in the morning, okay, I'm in my bed and I'm lazy and I'm tired or I'm lazy. I'd like to sleep more. It's hard for me to get up. So when we talk about the physical world, say, oh, why should I disturb my peace? But when we recognize that what is my presence here is avodas Hashem, like the Alter Rebbe says, that Hashem, the Shulchan says, that one has to reflect when he wakes up that Hashem stands there with him, then getting out is no problem at all. He jumps out because that's his life, that's him, he's not disturbing his peace, he's coming into his peace, he's coming into his life. Torah and mitzvahs are burdens, but they're burdens only on the behemoth, on our animal. They're not burdens to the real human being. To the real human being, they are enlightenment. They are a source of light and chayas and life, because it relates into his real true self. So this is basically the message that I wanted to discuss with you this afternoon. Maybe so to help each one of you to get the real chayas and in reflecting on this mitzvah and understanding that, I just want to mention, the Torah says that if you be concerned, what are you going to eat on the 7th year or the 8th year, as a matter of fact, because there's maybe 2 consecutive years, Shemitah and Yovel, what are you going to eat? So it says, "Mitzivisi es birchosi," I will send my bracha. If you keep Shemitah and Yovel, I will send my bracha, and in the 6th year will produce triple the amount of produce. Enough for 3 years. So it's interesting, there's a sikha from Rebbe, the Rebbe points out that some people who are interested to kind of water down the Torah and interpret the Torah, that the Torah actually was just a very smart scientist who wrote the Torah, and they knew the nature of the world, and they defined certain things that are advantageous from a natural perspective. They said that the land has to be left barren once in 7 years to allow the land to regain its strength, to replenish its minerals. Give it a year to rest, because it's tired after 6 years. Right? Makes sense? So the Pasuk right away says, don't be a fool, this is clearly not what I'm talking about. Why? Because the land was working hard for 5 years. The 6th year, when it's the most tired, it produces produce 3 times as much. Clearly, that's not what we're talking about. It's a completely different concept. Natural or not natural, the land will produce that which Hashem will tell it to produce. Mitzivisi es birchosi, I'm going to command my bracha, and that the land should produce. This is the basis of each one individual success. We have to work, but the success of the work is due to Hashem's bracha. Just like, I think, when you hear us speak, on the Sphira, by Sphira, we count 49 days, and then there's the 50th day. The 50th day The 49 days is that which we count all the spheres, all the midas, chesed shebechesed, chesed shebegvura, and so forth, and we purify all the midas. Then we come to the 50th, and the 50th is a gift from above, which elevates all the other 49 to a different level. That's that's the Matan Torah day. So the same is true in all our efforts. All our efforts is, yes, we have to work in a natural way and so forth, but we have to understand that the success of our endeavors are not due to our work. It's way beyond the work. It's Hashem's bracha that elevates and brings us this success. And I can say this to all of us. Anybody who has experienced a real good effort in trying to understand Yiddishkeit, learn Torah, and understand Chassidus, he turns around after a while and he sees that his mind opened up and he understands things that he never dreamt he would be able to understand. Way beyond anything that a person can find and pursue by natural pursuit. Why? Because it's Hashem's bracha, because it opens up his mind and opens up the light from the neshama, and it elevates him to a completely different state. That is the real us. This is the real you. The Rebbe should help each one of us to realize this bracha and to put all the effort we can to be the recipients. Like a bracha, you have to be able to receive. It shouldn't be overwhelming. You should be able to receive and accept this bracha. All of a sudden it becomes bright. Oh, it's good. I'm not scared of light. Some people are scared of light.
What do you do for those people?
Who are scared of light?
Yeah.
Those people that are scared of light need special attention. And you have to explain to them, in our world, darkness is a natural state. And light comes from the sun, which illuminates the darkness, which means the natural state is darkness. But you have to explain that is only in the physical and lowly world. The real truth is that light is the real natural state. The neshama recognizes light as the natural state. Darkness is only the neshama's effort to illuminate the body. But the neshama itself, the light is the natural state. It doesn't know of darkness.
So theoretically, then if they see the light, then they'll feel the light. They're not going to get scared.
Well, they will see the light, and at first it seems to them that this is a not natural state. But then if you explain to them, you say, no, that this is, you don't have to be scared because you have a neshama. And from the neshama's perspective, this is a natural state. Eventually they'll be able to accept it. So, Hatzlocha and Brocha, have a good week, have lots of light, and lots of simcha. Yes, Valvo.
Say that the Abba those aren't really the source of the nation, the Jewish nation. That's just like the way how you describe that?
They are the ancestors, but the nation as a nation was directly created by Hashem. But Hashem chose their descendants to make it into his nation. They merited that their descendants should be the nation. But the nation was created directly by Hashem. This is one of the principles that the Rambam explains, the Rebbe speaks about, that the Jewish religion, quote unquote, is unique in that the entire nation received it simultaneously. It wasn't like one person transmitted and, I learned, I understand something, let me teach it. The entire nation was present there, Ad Hasin, and received it simultaneously as a nation. That's why it's a national religion, because the whole nation received it at the same time.
Why do you choose the word nation instead of people? Because I know we're called the Goy and also an This is an aspect of us being a Goy. A nation. You're using the word nation. Is that significant? Or?
Yeah, well, nation, you could say the word people. The point is, not people may be relating to the individual people. The individuals within the nation are called the people. A nation means one unit. We are one unit.
That's really, it's synonymous though? If they're synonymous, nation and people?
Well, that's the point to answer you. The word people maybe refers to the individuals within that nation. But nation is a single term, singular form, referring to all the people belonging to that nation.
I think we also use for that.
Am is a nation. What's an Am?
A people. A people, meaning
No.
A people.
The word Am means a
Am
nation.
is a nation.
A nation. I don't know what's so to speak tickling you over there, but I'm saying that the point of nation means that it's a single entity.
So I don't really understand the distinction if there is one. I think people. I think also when you call like Am Yisrael, like that's one distinct entity.
Mm-hmm. But who says that the translation of the word Am is people, or not nation?
Because Goy means nation. Goy Echad Ba'aretz, like we said in Mincha, in Shabbos.
Goy also. That's another term for nation.
Yeah. So they're just synonyms.
Yeah, it's the same.
Oh.
These are two synonyms.
Okay.
The idea about the idea of the Shabbos being that the true Shabbos is what's going on inside the Jewish home. I mean, it reminds me, I speak to my father or something when I was at home. I think it's kind of a similar idea. Maybe you can tell me if I was on the right track though. We were discussing like the general idea, like Jew has to keep kosher. So like really like, I mean, it's kind of a silly question to ask. To studying something like, what does Hashem really care if you're going to eat something with him? What is his investment in say that you're not eating certain things? So I told him that Hashem is real, Hashem is true, Hashem is emes, and therefore He wants that His people should also be emes, and that also their delights should also be emes. Meaning the problem with a lot of the taivas that we see in the world is that they're transitory, they're not real. There's nothing sustaining there. They come and they go. You indulge in something, but because it's not built on a foundation, it's not built on the foundation that Hashem has laid out. So ultimately, it just kind of vanishes after a while, and therefore you're not really living your life isn't emes. Everything is just kind of, it's here and it's gone. I mean, in my mind, it seems similar to the idea of Shabbos. When a Jew is not participating in the Shabbos. So what's the problem? He's participating in a not real world. The world that he's participating in is not really there. It's here and it's gone. It's not really existing. It's kind of, you see what I'm saying?
And why is it not real?
Because it's not based on the truth. It's not. In order to be true, it has to be based on the Shem.
Okay.
So when Hashem says, you wanna get a delight out of food, let it be kosher food, delighted in on Shabbos for the covenant of Shabbos. So that's a real delight. That's a delight which is based on the truth of Hashem. So it's not just a transitory delight. It's
But the emphasis, you have to bring it to the logical conclusion. What makes it real is the fact that it is what Hashem defined, because it relates directly to Hashem. That is the reality. That is what makes it real. Like we discussed, the principle of a bracha. You know what I'm talking about?
about the apple on the tree.
Yeah. We don't eat apples from trees. We eat apples that Hashem gave us. We eat apples from trees. You are scavengers. That's not the way we were meant to live. The dog eats from the garbage pail. Whatever comes his way. We don't. We eat. We say Beira Priho eats. Hashem created the apple for us to eat, and that's when we eat it. It's a direct gift from Hashem. If it's Hashem's apple, we can eat it. If that apple belongs to the tree, we have nothing to do with it. And it's the same is in the food. Hashem created, kosher food. It says kosher food is what I prepared for you to eat. Non-kosher food is what is not food.
But does it make sense to say that because this is the food which Hashem prepared, because this is the apple which Hashem gave to me, therefore the nourishment that I get from it and the delight that I get out of eating it are also connected to the truth and the eternality of Hashem.
Yes.
And if I get non-kosher food and I just take it off the tree, it means the delight and the nourishment that I get from it is not. It's
worldly.
It's worldly. It's transitory. It's not. And the problem with that is it's not sort of eternal. It's not eternal like Hashem is eternal.
I know. See, you were emphasizing the eternity and the reality, and I'm trying to re-emphasize what is this eternity? Where does it come from? And we're not interested in eternity.
The source.
We're not, and the source. We're not even interested in the truth. We're interested in Hashem. Of course, Hashem is the truth. But once we translate it, then it becomes a worldly term. I want to have truth. Hashem created the world, and He created in the world everything that's needed. And He gave it to Adam, He gave it to the human being. And when a human being partakes of the world as a gift from Hashem, then he is getting it directly from Hashem. So then he is a real human being. He's living with Hashem. And a human being has to have a sense in his life. What's the sense of living? Oh, you have a Vedas Hashem. You have a real life. A human being to live like a cat in the world.
You're not really participating in Hashem's world.
Yeah, that's meaningless. It's not human.
And there's the idea that Hashem says, like you said about Shemitah, that you're living with me.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Mr. Menachem, did you take care of this, or somebody else taking care of that?
I'm doing it now.
Huh?
I'm doing it now.
Right now. Okay. You recorded the whole thing.
Sorry, can you give me,
Huh?
can you maybe give an example of some symptoms?
I'm sorry?
I'll get your cup.
An example of?
Symptoms of a person.
I'm sorry?
Symptoms.